And we are back with the videos. Welcome back. It's been a minute. So, like normal, you can choose to watch the videos and do the work on your own. I'll explain all the stuff as we've been going along, so on and so forth. I will start out by saying we are now in marking period 3, right? Marking period 1, 2, and 3 are all a part of semester 1. If for some reason one of those 3 marking periods is drastically lower, let's say you didn't do so hot marking period 1, or you kind of fell off marking period 2 for your semester grade, which is supposed to be the average of the 3, because I'm a nice guy, I'm gonna, if you had 2 of them that are like, let's say 80s and one that's a 55 or something like that, I'll just ignore the 55 and I'll just give you the average of like the 80s. So incentive to do well, and hopefully we can finish out semester 1 strong. So we are starting a new unit. Let's go to the slideshow. Oh, there we go. All right, so we are up to Unit 6. It's called The Rise of Nationalism and World War II. We are cooking. We're going to be done with World War II by the time we go to February break. And then we come back with the Cold War, which is one of my favorite and most complicated topics. So today's objective, students be able to evaluate to what extent Ataturk's reforms or changes improve the status of women in Turkey. So we're going to be talking about Turkey today. It's a country in the Middle East, very close to Europe. It's we have a map at one point, and something to do for the do now to get us thinking about this, to think back to Unit 2. I believe it was. I asked you, were the Haitians justified in revolting against the French during the Haitian Revolution, or were the people of Grand Colombia justified in revolting against the Spanish in the Creole Revolutions? And if you remember, both of these were either the Haitians or South Americans revolting against imperialism, revolting against colonial rule, and basically ruling themselves. Toussaint Louverture becomes the leader of Haiti. Simon Bolivar becomes the leader of Grand Colombia, and it's these people ruling themselves. And ultimately we have Haiti, Colombia, Peru, all of these countries that are independent, no longer ruled by a foreign nation. So World War I, which Miss Winecoop was nice enough to finish with you guys, was a huge event, not only in European history, where the majority of the battles were fought, but in world history. It is going to affect many nations, even nations that weren't even involved in the war. And the outcome of the war would impact many nations around the world. And we're going to talk about a few of them before we get into World War II. It's also going to, the end of World War I, and specifically the Treaty of Versailles, is going to lay the groundwork for World War II. I miss doing these videos, man. I miss these. So the Treaty of Versailles was a peace treaty that did end World War II, but as you looked at, it kind of placed a lot of blame on Germany, and there was a lot of things that were kind of wonky. One of the good ideas in it, though, was this idea for self-determination. Now, it sounds fancy, but basically, if you break it down, it's yourself determining things for you. It's basically independence, or like you making decisions for yourself. So if we look here at the map of Europe before World War I, there was places like Germany that ruled over the Polish people. There were Czech people that were being ruled by the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. There was Estonians, Latvians being ruled by the Russians. There was a lot of people, a lot of nationalities that weren't making decisions for themselves. They were under the yoke or under the rule of another country. So you see the second map shows you all these new countries that were created by World War I happening. So we have Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia. We're talking about Turkey today, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. So there's a lot of new countries in the map, and all of these are people, and these are nationalities. You can travel to all these countries when you get a little bit older. So this is a very, very new idea, and this treaty, while it was flawed, did kind of push for this. Now, big brain question. You talked a lot about imperialism and a stronger nation coming in and taking over a weaker nation. We looked at India, we looked at places in Africa, we looked at the Congo, we looked at China. How does this idea of self-determination, how does it vibe with imperialism? And you should automatically be like, these two things, they butt heads. They don't mix, right? The idea of like a country like Spain ruling the Philippines. The Filipino people should rule the Philippines. Same thing with Cuba. It shouldn't be the Spain. It should be the Cubans should rule Cuba. So this is going to really kind of butt heads with imperialism. We're going to see a lot of these former colonies break free. Now, one place that is often forgot about in World War I was the Ottoman Empire. It was Germany, Austria, and the Ottoman Empire that were on the one side, the central powers of World War I. And because they lost, they were now being ruled by Great Britain. And this didn't vibe well with the people who lived there because they're like, yo, you're talking about self-determination. We should rule ourselves. So these people, and they're called the Turks, were very upset by this. And they kind of, they really liked this idea of self-determination. They were very proud to be Turkish. So this idea of nationalism or devotion for your nation started to kind of develop, as we see here. The symbol of, move me, the symbol of Turkey here on this woman's shirt and in the back. And they started to rebel, and it's actually a whole war not too long after World War I. And the guy to know is this guy right here. His name is Mustafa Kemal Ataturk. You can just refer to him as Ataturk, and it's really easy to remember because Turkey. So Ataturk was able to lead his people, the Turkish people, in independence. And look how easy it is to remember. The Turkish people, Ataturk, right? And actually his name translates to the father of all Turks. And they actually established a new nation called Turkey, which we see here, just to show you where it is in the map. And he's going to become the leader of Turkey after this war of independence. And he's going to start to make some changes. He kind of wanted to bring Turkey into the 20th century. And a lot of countries in the Middle East were still kind of doing like old traditional stuff, very, very traditional, very old school. There we go. That was the word I was looking for. So they used to follow something called Sharia law, which is based on the Quran. He starts to move away from that. He starts to make Turkey, his big thing was to make Turkey more modern or more Western, to kind of copy the good things that Europe was doing, like the style of government, things like that. Even the clothing, you can see here, the juxtaposition between him and his wife. His wife is obviously dressed more traditional, whereas he is dressed very European. It's a shirt, tie, suit. So he does a lot of that for Turkey. He makes a lot of different changes. And one of the things that he does do is women's rights, which is, again, this is like 1923 or so. So very, very early for women's rights. Even in America, they had just gotten the right to vote. So for a Middle Eastern country, it's very, very early. And just to give you, that's a mistake, just to give you some an idea, I think in Saudi Arabia, women just got the right to drive in 2015, 16, 17, 18, one of those. In the last 10 years, they've got the right to drive. So giving women the right to vote, and amongst other things, is a good thing, right? And it's a very early progressive thing for a Middle Eastern country like Turkey. So this is the question you're going to have to answer today. To what extent did his reforms improve the status of women in Turkey? We do know they do have the right to vote now in Turkey. So I gave you 4 documents. It's 2 pages, but this is like size like 3,000 font. So just 2 and 2 more. They're going to give you opposite opinions. So just read through those, and then the exit slip, I gave you a nice short one to get you used to back in the groove. A little bit of context here. These 2, you just got to complete these sentences. Ataturk's reforms improve the status of women in Turkey because, and the same thing, but, and then 2 multiple choice to get you thinking, right? All right, cool. See you guys.